160. He's gone.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the garage. Today we are going to be working on our second project for Birdhouse Innovations, which is that RV trailer company you guys might have seen me mention in one of my other videos. And today we will start building the main piece that's going to go in the back in the bedroom for storage. And so the overall idea is something like this. So this is going to be 90 inches wide, and it's going to be sitting in the back. So in the back of this trailer, there's a bedroom, right, in the bed. And so in the top corner of the very, very back of the trailer, we're going to install this, and it's going to give us much needed storage space so that people that are coming in, they can put their duffel bags, put their suitcases and stuff up there, then hang their clothes on the side. And so we're going to build this in a very similar fashion the way we built everything else. We're going to use 1-inch square tubing to create 3 basically hoops, and hopefully that's what I get done today. Then we're going to use angle iron to create these shelves right here, and into those shelves we're going to put some more of that reclaimed wood, but this time I think we're going to paint it and whitewash it to kind of give it, make it match with the rest of the bedroom. Overall, it should be a really fun project, and it's going to be the main centerpiece of that back bedroom, so we need to make sure that it looks good. One thing I picked up to kind of help along the way is this guy. I got this from Harbor Freight for about $8. I've looked at these before. They're called angle clamps basically, and they give you a perfect right angle, let you squeeze a piece of tube or something in here, and it basically meets up perfectly right on the inside here. So I initially planned on purchasing one of these, but the welding specific ones are ridiculously expensive. They're something like $60 or $70 for what's basically a couple of clamps welded together. So this one that has all metal construction, we'll see, except for the handles, we'll see how well it lasts under the heat of the welder. But at $9, even if it works for one project, I'd rather trash it and then buy it the next time I need to do something like this. Or just take it back to Harbor Freight and have them replace it for me. So that said, first step is to bust out the chop saw. We're going to start first by making those square tube hoops. We're going to be using 1-inch square tube, and thankfully I was able to get a whole bunch of it in the drop section, so I got a whole bunch of steel for like 15 bucks. So to get us started with this project, so this is where this thing is supposed to come in handy, right? So it took me like 10 seconds to get this all squared up. And it's really, really close on the outside edges, but you can see there's a little bit of bump there. So theoretically, if I just weld it up like this and then go corner to corner to corner, it should all be perfectly square in the end. So we're going to go ahead and just try it. And we'll measure it out and see how square it is when we're done. So, time for a little moment of truth. Does our little angle holder thingy work? So I got, what? I will call it 22 3/4. And we will call it 22 3/4. It's actually just a little bit over that. It's like 22 7/8 in each direction. But that is super duper freaking square. And now all we have to really do is finish welding this up, grind everything down, and then make 3 more of these things. Or I'm sorry, 2 more of these things. So there's our first frame made, and now we can kind of double check to see where we are on our measurements. We're exactly just, a 1/16 over 16 inches on the inside, and basically a 1/16 over 12 inches on the inside this way. So this frame is exactly the right size we need. I went ahead and ground all of the welds smooth so it looks like it was made out of one solid piece of metal. I did not weld the inside corners because they're really clean and I didn't want to have to get in there basically to do that work. Just unnecessary. So now all I have to do is make 2 more of these, and that will be it for the framing portion. But came out really nice. This little angle holder thing is really really awesome to use. I wish I'd bought it before. So today we're going to be working on making the frames for the wood that go into that piece, and I managed to get this amongst with some other stuff for scrap for about 15 bucks. I actually got a ton of steel today. Unfortunately, with the exception of this piece that was one of mine that was left over from a project, all these are too short, so we actually have to butt weld these together and then cut them down to the right length. And the reason I'm doing this is to basically maximize savings, because this project's really, my friends are really on a really tight budget, and so that's what we're going to do first. So I'm going to figure out a layout, measure out all my cut pieces for these 4 frames, and then we're just going to get cranking on getting these welded together and then cut down. So unfortunately, because I don't have steel pieces that are long enough, we're just going to quickly weld a couple of these butt ends together. They're actually really, really straight because I just held them in the vise. And we'll just grind down these outside welds and then cut this down. Alright, so we're in here, and the next step is we got to build our 4 sets of frames. So, as you can see, we got some work to do. The important thing here is to ensure that no matter what happens, this overall length, and that doesn't work one-handed, this overall length can't be more than 43.5 inches because the trailer is a very, very tight fit at 90 inches, and these are exactly 1 inch across. And so, if anything, we got to take up some of the gap right here. So the overall unit really has to be 90 inches, otherwise I'm going to be stuck doing a hell of a lot of grinding. And I really don't want to do that. So we're actually going to try to make these a hair under 43.5, maybe 43 and, I don't know, 3/8-ish, just so that we can make sure it fits in the trailer correctly, because the welds are going to expand, there's going to be a little heat and stuff like that. So at this point, there's nothing really to talk about. Just got to get to it and weld some shit up. good weather's finally back in Texas, and before we can do our kind of final assembly, we got to hit all of this with a wire brush to get it ready for prepping. That way it's a lot easier to do this when everything is piecemeal than trying to do it when you got everything already welded up and you're trying to get in the corners and stuff. You get a much more universal product by doing it like this. So this part's not really a whole lot of fun, but just got to get to it. So here's our first enclosure, and I've just finished measuring everything out, and this is why for welding and woodworking it is so important to have as many clamps as humanly possible. You really want to make sure that you have the ability to tack everything together manually like this before you weld anything. And so what we've done here is we've made sure that this face is smooth, and this one up here, and this is level with the top. So there's going to be a piece of wood that goes in here and another piece of wood that goes in here. And on the back side you can see that it's pretty flush over here, but this one little guy right here steps out a little bit. This one back here is pretty even too. So what I'm going to do is when we're done, I'm going to hit that with an angle grinder to kind of smooth it back in a little bit. But since that is the backside that's going to face the wall, it's not going to make too much of a difference because it's all going to be seated in there pretty tightly. And our measurements so far are on point, so it's 43.5 inches plus the two 1-inch bars. It's exactly 45.5 inches, so I'm really happy with that. So now all we really got to do is just start tacking things into place. And we will actually assemble the entire thing on the workbench before I finish welding everything. So there we go, there's our finished box set. Next thing to do is tomorrow I'm gonna have to go and test fit it, make sure it fits, figure out where we gotta weld on the stud mounts, because remember we still have to affix brackets on the inside to allow us to bolt this to the back wall. And at that point we'll be able to finish it up, do the hanging rods and a few other bits and pieces. But it's coming along pretty good. Well, you know how they say that no plan survives contact with the enemy? That's what we got here. So I took this thing, this big box, the other night with my buddy and went and measured it. And it turns out somebody made the decision to use thicker insulation and thicker paneling, and so my 90-inch piece no longer fits in the 89.5-inch trailer. So we got to take a ½ an inch out of this thing, which is a huge pain in the ass, because obviously there's nowhere where I can just be like, oh yeah, we'll just snip here on the ends. Ideally, that's what I would do, but I can't just magically slice the square tube in half. You need like a giant bandsaw, and I don't have a giant bandsaw. And so the other option was to take just ½ an inch out of one side and leave the other side the way it is. Then it wouldn't look right, and there's no point in doing something if you're not going to do it right. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a ½ inch out of each of these sides. And what that means is I'm going to use my little marker here, and we're going to mark out a ½ inch on each of these pieces. Then I'm going to use the bandsaw, and we're going to cut, and then we're going to weld it and make it just a little bit narrower, so it's going to end up being just under 89.5 inches all the way across. Then hopefully it will fit in this trailer, and hopefully we can get that done today and a few other finishing details and get this fucking thing done and get it out of my garage, because I've been working on it for like 2 weeks now. Alright, so here's the deal. That is what we're going to cut out. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we'll do roll this thing over and do the other ones. And then we just got to weld it back together, and thankfully I got these sheet metal style clamps, and hopefully it'll go together pretty well. There we go. We went from 43.5 overall length to 43.25, and I had to do some grinding to get everything to fit, and that back piece is still bowing a little bit, but we got to get everything snug, and then we can just tack weld it in, and then I'll do the other side. But it looks like we're going to be able to take a ½ an inch out of this, and once I grind all the welds down, it won't be too noticeable. The next step is we got to make our little holder rods for people to hang their shit on. And all I did, this is 1.5 inch pipe, and I'm just going to strip it down with the wire brush to make it all clean and shiny. And then we will figure out where we want to put it underneath here and weld it on. So the next step is we got to cut out these circles. They're going to be the ends to this rod, and get these rods finished up before we can get them mounted to the bottom. I found that it's a lot easier just to weld these on and then grind the fuck out of it later to get it to look exactly right. So here's our finished shower curtain, or I'm sorry, not shower curtain rods, finished clothing rods. So we can set those guys aside. And the next thing we gotta do is we gotta cut the pieces. And what this is right here is this is just 1/4-inch steel rod I picked up. What we're gonna do is we're gonna cut this into length and use that to weld up to here. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna cut 2 sections of 2 inches. Actually, I'm sorry, 2.5 inches to give us the drop on one side, and then we will figure out the length of the other piece needs to be after we get all this welded kind of tacked together. So to get these get these curtain rods hung, first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna weld this right here. And what this is gonna do, this is a 2.5-inch piece, and it's gonna be a little bit overlapped, so that'll give us plenty of space for our hanger. And then this distance from here to the back wall is about 12 inches, which is kind of what my closet is set up at. So if you think about this being right here, you can see that there's plenty of space even if we're kind of a wider hanger. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to weld this into place here and then on the other side, and then we're going to weld the rod across. Then we're going to figure out how long of a distance we have to go to get the other one triangulated up here. Alright, so there we go. Obviously that's not super structural, but it's going to hold. And remember, this is just holding closed anyway. So the next piece will do something like that. So it's going to weld right there and it's going to weld right there. So the next step is we got to cut out these mounting plates and get them welded on there, and that's be able to wrap this project up a little bit. Basically, these are going to be what the bolt holes, these will have bolt holes that'll allow us to bolt it to the wall, and I have the measurements for where they are from the left hand side. So that's going to be kind of a pain in the ass, and hopefully we got all the measurements right, because that's not going to be fun to redo. But these are basically just 3x3 squares, and I'm going to cut them off and butt weld them to the angle iron, and hopefully that's going to work. So this right here is our set of 3x3-inch plates, and what I did was I cut them and squared them off together and then welded them together so that when we flip them over we can round them out a little bit, and that way we're just going to round off all the corners a little bit, but this way they don't move in relation to each other, so they all look the same when we grind this off later on, and then we'll end up with 4 plates. So here are our finished pieces, and tomorrow morning I'm going to weld all these up, and then we can seal this bitch and be done. Next thing we got to do is we got to slot these holes, and the best way to do that is to use a plasma cutter to kind of run a little bit off, and then basically we'll end up having to just grind it out to make it look pretty decent. And when we use the bolt, we're going to put a big washer on it so you won't be able to see this as much. So the next step here is I got this first bracket kind of centered, What we're going to do is we're going to do top bracket, bottom bracket, top bracket, bottom bracket. So we're going to actually hold on to the exact same studs. And the studs in the back wall of this RV are actually 3 inches wide, and we've made like about a 2-inch wide hole. So we should be really good, even if our measurements were a little bit off in the RV. Basically what I have is a magnet holding this in, and you guys can see that kind of right there. And all we're going to do is we're going to TIG weld the fuck out of it right here. It's basically flush with the back. And as you can see, we had a little rain last night, and I left this outside, so we're going to have a whole shit ton of wire brushing to do before we seal it. But before we can get to that, we gotta weld this motherfucker up. So that's what we're going to do. Well, we got our mounts welded up, we got our hangers welded up, we got everything ground down, hopefully nice and clean. The next step is to take some IPA and wipe down the entire frame, and then we'll take our penetrol and go over the frame with the penetrol and give it an hour to rest or so and cure, and then we're going to go and install it in the trailer. Well, there we go. There's our finished product, and as you can see, it's going to allow people to hang their clothes over the nightstands on the sides, and a couple of nice suitcases will fit right in there. I had to stagger the mounts because of the weird places where the studs were in the wall, and I thought rather than having like 2 centered here and then 2 off center here, I would just stagger them 1 up, 1 down, that way we could use all 4 of the available studs in that back wall. I think that once it's full and kind of dark because it's up in that top corner, it's going to look really good. We've sealed it with penetrol. Needs another about half an hour to cure. And then I'm going to load it in the truck and get out of here. That's pretty much it for this video. If you guys liked it, please subscribe. Make sure you check out MaksWerks on Instagram so you can get up to date stuff on projects like this way before the videos come out. Again, thanks for watching. Peace.